Hello everyone and welcome to today's video where we are going to dive into the fascinating world of pagination in React. Yes, if you are looking to enhance the user experience and optimize the performance of your web application when you are dealing with APIs, pagination is a crucial concept to master. So in this video, we will cover everything you need to know from the theory behind pagination with a practical implementation using React TypeScript and the TMDB database. So what we're gonna do is, with the help of TMDB database, we will create this web application which fetches the movies from the endpoint provided by the TMDB and will display to the user with the help of pagination. So whether you are a seasoned developer or just starting out, this video is designed to equip you with the skills to create efficient and user-friendly pagination interface. So let's get started. And before we start coding, let's lay the foundation by understanding the theory behind pagination. And we will talk about the definition of pagination in React. Then we will have a look at why we should use pagination with an example. And lastly, we will have a look at when do we actually need to use pagination. Once we get the idea on what is pagination all about, then we will jump on to the coding part where we will create this simple React app which fetch the API data, and then it will display to the user. So here's the catch: the database we are using, TMDB, only serves 20 items at a time. So if the, let's say, API holds thousands of movies, but if it will only show you 20 movies maximum in an array element at a time. That's why in this scenario we have to use pagination to fetch as many as movie available over there, so we can go to different pages, right? And once we have this application, because it can only display 20, then we will add the pagination to our website, so we can go to the different sections, like we can go to the other movies, we can browse through all the available information from the endpoint, right? So then we will use style component obviously to style this app, which is not that crucial part of this video, but we still need to make it look better, right, to stand out that it looks like a actual movie website. So let's talk about pagination. What is pagination? Pagination in React refers to the practice of breaking down a large set of data into smaller manageable chunks or pages to enhance user experience. So it is a common technique we use in web application to display a limited number of items at a time, allowing user to navigate through the data easily without overwhelming them with too much information on a single page. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you are going on a movies website where you actually watch your movies. Mostly you will see all the movies website have pages down there, but let's say if there's no pagination in the website and you just keep on scrolling, so it's like an infinite scroll. You just keep on scrolling down to pick a movie that you're gonna watch, and then you realize, oh wait, there was a movie that I noticed up there, I wanted to watch that, and then you have to now scroll all the way up to find that movie where it is. So that's why we should use pagination, because pagination provides you with, let's say you're displaying 20 items on a page, and you can go to second page, third page, fourth page, and if you see that, oh, I saw a movie on third page, so you will just simply click on the third page and come back there, and then you can just start streaming that movie, right? So that's the example of it, which I already talked about. So this is a movie website without pagination. This is the one with pagination. So the one on the left hand side, it's with the infinite scroll. You can keep on scrolling to them, it will never end. And the one on the right, we're using pagination. You can go into the pages, it only displaying 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 16 movies at a time. So one page holds 16 movies, second page will also hold 16 movies. You can easily pick the one you want to watch rather than just scrolling onto the left hand side. Just keep on scrolling up and down to pick a favorite movie. And like we say, why we use pagination, I already mentioned that, but there are some other key things that we need to keep in mind, that why we use pagination, because it enhances the user experience. So it prevents overwhelming user with a large amount of data all at once. So by displaying a limited number of items per page, the user can easily navigate through the data and find what they are looking for. And faster initial load. When we are fetching a subset of data, the initial load time of our application is significantly reduced. This is especially crucial for application when we're dealing with like really extensive data set, as loading all the data upfront can lead to long loading times and a poor first impression for user. You don't want to get stuck onto a website which is just keeps on loading, right? As a user, we all ran out of patience in 2023. We go on a website, if it's loading, we just get out of there, like, nah, I don't want to use this. So it also improved the performance for when we are rendering a large number of elements in the DOM. The DOM can slow down your application's performance. So by using pagination, we limit the number of elements that are being displayed at once, which results in a smoother scrolling and more responsive UI. And it also optimizes the network usage, because when we're using pagination, it minimizes the amount of data that is being transferred over the network. Because of that, this is essential for users with slower internet, especially because and the one that have really poor internet connection, or maybe the one who's accessing the application on mobile devices. It reduces data usage and speed up the content on delivery when we are using pagination over there. And it's also reduced server load. So fetching and rendering a smaller subset of data at a time reduce the strain of your server, so make it more efficient and capable of handling a higher volume of requests. So that's it. This is why we use pagination. There are many other things, but these are the key things to keep in mind, that why we must use pagination when we actually dealing with lots of data. And when do we actually use this? The first thing first, if you're dealing with APIs and then you have lots of data that coming from the API, you must use this. So there's a definition for this. You need a pagination when you are dealing with a large data set that can be displayed all at once, right? Whether it is movies, products, or any kind of data, if there's more than what fits on a single page, it's pagination time, right? There's an example why we should use pagination. So this is NZ Sale. This is an official website. No hard feeling NZ Sale, but I'm a user, and their website is an example that they should be using pagination. So if you look at their website, you can just keep on scrolling here. There's like an infinite scroll going on here. They are fetching some information, displaying here to the user, and it's all on our face. We can just keep on scrolling here, it will never end. And now if I notice something up there that, oh wait, I wanted to go to that item, now I have to scroll up all the way and to have a look at that, where it is. Only thing they have here is just a button that take you to the top. So it's not a button that take you to middle somewhere, it just takes you to top. But this is a really bad example, so that's why we should use pagination here. And there's another example that I want to show where the pagination is being used. So this is my Flixer.to. It's like an online movie streaming app, web application. Inside this, if I go to movies, you can see they have got pagination. So if I want to see, they are displaying some movies here, and then I can go to the next page. Isn't this much better? Rather than you on the first page, just only page you have, and then you just scroll here infinitely, just keep on scrolling, and then you saw something, oh, I wanted to pick that one, and then you just have to come scroll up, rather than just scrolling using the pagination with the pages. So that's the two scenarios that why we should and when we should use the pagination, right? So that's it. There you have it, the why and the when of using pagination in React. It is like having a library with only the books you want to read right now. It's efficient, organized, and user-friendly. So that was all the theory part, and now let's go ahead and start creating this app. So here we are. Now we'll start implementing this app. So we will create this simple app fetching the TMDB database, which will use pagination, so we can go different pages to browse through different movies. We can come back, and so let's go ahead. I have my VS Code open here. I have already installed the React TypeScript app using the template TypeScript. If you don't know how to do this, please check my previous video. I have shown how we can install a default React app with the TypeScript configuration. So I have the app installed, and I have already cleared up the default to save up some time. Now let's just go ahead and run this. So we want to have like a complete blank app just like this, and this is the one that we want. Right now it's completely blank. So let's go ahead and start implementing this. First thing first, I'd like to do is create a folder called components. Inside this we will create another file which will fetch the movies, so we'll name it movies. .tsx. I'm going to use the React snippets. And I will also create a CSS file for our style, but first of all I'm gonna go ahead and install the libraries that we will be using. So first one is npm install Axios. We will be using Axios in this case. If you want to try using promises or the fetch function, check out the previous video where I'm explaining 3 different ways of fetching the data, and also try to do with the other method as well if you're fetching the API data. So let's go ahead and install the Axios. Always check the package.json. Axios is installed, and let's go ahead and also install the style components. Style components. Checking the package.json, style components is there. Yes, so we have the dependency that we needed. And now I'm gonna go ahead inside source folder. I'm gonna create a file for our style, like a style component. We can name this movies.modules.ts. Inside this, import styled from style components, and we can export a wrapper which will wrap this whole movie components, right? So I'm gonna export this as const movies wrapper, and we're gonna treat it as a div. So style.div, and then the template literal. So now this export, we are exporting it from here. This movie wrapper is available inside our project. We can import it here from to directory back from movies or module, right? And we can wrap this entire app inside this. So all of our styling will go under this, and then that will apply to whatever is wrapped inside movie wrapper. We can go ahead and create another file which will store the API link. So I like to keep my API links and endpoints in a separate file. So we can name this API links.ts. And in the previous video I was like trying to blur my API key, but I'm just gonna give it away. So if you wanna use my API key to actually see if it's working, so I'm gonna show it to you. This is my API key. I'm just gonna copy paste it here. So you can use this API key to actually use the information from the TMDB, and the endpoint I'm gonna use from the TMDB is called API TMDB or discover movie. So it contains every movies that coming from the API data. So this is, now we are exporting this from here, we are exporting this here. They both are available inside our app. So let's go ahead, and what I want to do is import Axios from Axios, because we gonna use Axios actually to first we're gonna use Axios, I mean not first, we're just gonna use Axios to actually fetch the information, and then we will use the params method to set up the pagination inside our app. So now we're gonna fetch the information from an API data. So what we're gonna do with that data, we're gonna store it into a state variable so we can have access to the information that's coming from the endpoint. So we're gonna go create a use state variable here. We can name it something, show items, or maybe show movies, but it's up to you, whatever you want to name it. I'm gonna name it this, and then set show items, and we're gonna use state with the camel case notation. So we're gonna leave it like this for now. And what else we should do is, now we have the information for these two. Let's try to see what console log gives us, what the data we are expecting from the API. So we're gonna go ahead and create a use effect hook here. Use effect. Now if you don't know what use effect is, it's basically a React hook. This hook is part of React and is used for performing side effects in functional components. Side effects could be fetching the API data when you're dealing with subscription or manually changing the DOM. In this case, we are fetching the API data. So we, inside this use effect hook, we have created the use effect hook. We are going to create a function which will do the fetching. So we are going to go ahead and create a function, an arrow function, not arrow function, an asynchronous function. Const, we will name it fetch movies. And if you haven't seen my previous video, please do check, in which I'm explaining how we can fetch API data using different method. We can use async await, which is an asynchronous function. We can use promises. In this case, we'll be using this asynchronous function, and then we will store the response. Actually, we should use try and catch, because when we are doing API work, we are dealing with APIs. We also always want to have try and catch block. So if the API doesn't work, the catch block can throw some error and we get some feedback on what's going on. So inside the try block, we'll get a response which will await from the axios.get. Now if you're not using Axio, you will do fetch function here, and then inside this you will provide your link. But now we are using Axios, so we will use axios.get, and inside this you can pass your API link. But in our case, we have stored them inside the different files. This is the API key, this is the endpoint. So I'm gonna go ahead and import them. Import discover endpoint and API key from the same file. Inside this, we will use temple literal. We'll pass the discover endpoint, and now we have to pass it our API key. So API key, which will be the API key that we have stored inside the variable. If we were not using this approach, we will just pass the link here and then the API key here, but this is much cleaner way of doing it. And next thing we're gonna want to do is we want to store the response that's coming from there, because the response variable is just storing this information, and then the information that's getting stored inside the response, we will store it inside another variable. We'll call it results, and let's go response dot data. And after that, we can set you set this state variable to this result, so then this will have the access to everything from the API data. So set show items to what? To results. If you don't want to do this, you can directly do this, but I like doing it that way. So now that holds that, we can go ahead and create a catch block which will catch the error if the HTTP request goes wrong. Error. Inside this, we will log the error, console.error. Error could be something went wrong. Try again, and then display the error to user. So that's how you do fetching using AXIs. But since we are in a use effect, we have to call the function here, and it should have use effect hook has dependencies, but in this case it's just going to be an empty dependency. So what's happening inside this? We have an asynchronous function which awaits a response from this API link with this API key, and then it stores the response to data inside this results variable. This results variable then pass that information to this state variable, and that gets stored into this. This is basically a state function, you can say. And then we're checking if the API link doesn't work, nothing will run in this block. We will just get to see this message will print and the type of error we are getting. So it's as simple as that. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and check if the API link is working. So before you start like making a UI and start rendering the data, I always want to check if I am actually getting anything from the API. So console log results, and we are gonna go to our app, to the console. We are getting an object here. Let me just try to refresh this. Okay, I knew that because we are doing everything inside the movie component, and this is not being passed to the app.tsx, which is responsible to render everything. So we are going to go inside app and we will call this component inside. So now it is rendering here. There we go, the link is already working, and we can see inside the link, the API, we have total pages of 39,501 pages, and there are like over 100,000 page items in their results. So we got the results. Like I told you at the beginning of the video, this TMDB link only serves 20 items at a time. So we have these 20 items, 20 array elements starting from 0, which is basically 1. So we get the 20 movies. The first one at 0 is the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and the second one is Transformers Rise of the Beast. So let's see what the one we have got here. So it's pretty much like that: Spider-Man, Transformers, and third one should be Barbie. Yep. So you can see this information is now here in our console log because we are fetching it from the API. So we're gonna go ahead, and now we know that the API link is working. So what are we gonna do? This show items holds everything from this data, from this endpoint. So we are gonna come up here. Now we're gonna declare the types for it. So now we know that console log is showing everything that comes from the data. We need an image of the movie, a title of the movie, and the date here. So we need 3 things, and obviously we need ID as well. So let's go ahead and see what are the types for them. ID is a number. This purple or magenta color is number, green is string. So we're gonna fetch the ID as a number, title as a string, and poster path as a string as well, and release date. What is this release date? So these are the 4 things we're gonna get. We're gonna come up the component. We are going to declare our types here: interface movie types. So now we're doing the TypeScript here. We are fetching an ID as number. We are fetching title, which has to be a string, and release date, which is also string, poster path, which is also a string. Let me just double check it because these should match exactly what we are expecting. Poster path, release date, title. Okay, so that's done. Now what are we gonna do? Now we have declared the types. We are gonna get this interface. We're going to pass it to the use state. So now this use state variable, which holds everything from data, should know that it's expecting these types, that it's expecting ID as a number, title as a string, and so on. So once that's done, we can come to the JSX where we can start creating our UI, and we have got our h1 here first and a container. So let's go ahead and create an h1 with tsx flex prime, because why not? We can name it whatever we want. It's our app. Movie card. I'll create a class. This will be the parent class of everything, this whole thing, and then we'll create another class for movie, which will just holds everything that we want to show it to the user. Let me just close the terminal. Inside the movie class, we will map the show items dot map, and then we'll get the information and put it into items. and then we will simply return. Okay, so it's saying show item is possibly undefined. Yes, obviously, because we are expecting an array, so we want an array. So that warning is gone. Yes. And now inside this map function we can create another class. We'll name it movie, and this will have a movie image. Here we can render the image. So image source would be items dot poster path. And one more thing, we want to give it a key prop, because if we wouldn't, we will get a console warning. So key should be items dot id. Always give it to the parent div inside your map function. So we have got that, and then we need, actually with the poster path, we need the position, the height and width of the image, how much the width should be when we are fetching this. So we have to pass it a link, which is https image.tmdb, the movie database, .org/t/p, and then we have the width, which is 200 in our case, slash that, and then we will pass it the items dot poster path, and alt definitely, otherwise it will just keep throwing some warnings. So img, the image is done. This is the image class. Now we'll come outside that. We will create a info section, which will be this movie info. So we just did movie image, now we're doing movie info. Movie info. Inside this we have got an h4 tag and a p. And this would be the title, items dot title. I just love the intelligence of TypeScript. When you get the information, when you put that dot, you see the information available there, feels so good. P items dot release, oh my bad, items dot release date. Now let's go ahead and see if we are actually seeing anything. Show map is not a function. We are getting some console warning here. Show item is not a function at move across this. So this is looking alright to me. We don't see any error, we don't see any terminal error. I think something wrong with our fetch function. What is, okay, so we need to destructure the results, because this is what is throwing the error. Because in JavaScript, when we destructure an object using curly braces like this, we are extracting the value of the results property from the response data and object and assigning it to a variable called result. So we need to destructure it here, I think. Yeah, so if the app is running, let's see, there we go. Now we have this. Okay, so we have the app running now. Now I just get smaller, let's make it bigger. So this is the information we are getting. There should be 20 movies here, obviously, because that's all we can fetch at a time. That's why we're doing this tutorial, so we can use pagination. Now before we do that, let's go ahead and style this app. So let's go ahead into our module file. We'll split it here. Don't know why you're splitting at the bottom. Okay, so we got it on the side. Let's close this, open the movies tsx, and what we have flex property with the flex wrap. So let's make the parent, the wrapper, as a flex. In this one we want it to be flex because the h1 and the class that contains everything and the buttons, they will be in a column. So we have got that. Display flex, we want to align items to center. So what I'm gonna do is I am gonna fast forward the process where I create the styles for the app, because otherwise the video will be too long, and I don't want the video to be too long. I'm working on it because my video is getting a little bit longer. So the main focus here is to learn pagination in React. So I will paste the link in the description for my GitHub repo where you can copy paste the style component. Exactly, it is just looking at the videos. And if you have any trouble, please let me know in the comment section. I will paste it in the comment. So I'm gonna fast forward this so we can jump on to the pagination part. Now as you can see that I'm fetching the information here from the database, right? I'm getting everything that database is providing me, but in this case it's only 20 items. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 14 and 1 2 3 4 5 6. So there's only 20 items that I can see from this database. What do I have to do in order to get more items? Here's one thing you can do is you can use the slice function. I thought that the slice function would work because you can actually tell the API that, hey, this is how many items I want. So what you can do is over here, if I do set show items, and inside this I will use the results dot slice 0 and let's say 12. So we have got 12 movies now. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. So this slice function helps you to pick as much as items you want to display from the endpoint, right? But they still can't display more than 20. So we got 20. Let's try 40, 30 actually. Nothing, because we are restricted to display 20 items from the API link that we are working with. So now we need pagination. So slice is not an option, or you can still keep it because it's up to you if you want to show 20, let's say 6 on per page. And then you can have the pagination here, next and previous, so you can do that. So styling is done pretty much. Yeah, we can now go ahead and add the pagination to this. Now in order to add pagination to our app, what we have to do is we have to create another state variable here. So I'm going to close this, we don't need this anymore. So we are gonna go and create another state variable. We'll name it current page and set current page we will initialize it as 1 because we will start from the first page. We will add another state variable which will get the total pages. So total pages, set total pages in React. React.use state. We will also initialize it as 1. Now we are gonna come inside our use effect hook inside our fetch function, and after this we're gonna pass it in additional in a perm object. So right after this we're gonna call params object, gonna get the pages which will be equal to current page. That okay with that. So what we have done here is the param object is used to specify a query parameters to be sent along with the request. So when we are sending a request to the API, we will also send a query request using this param object, and this is an additional configuration option we are passing to the xuse.get method. It's an object, like I said, containing params property query parameters which are used to send the option additional data with the request. In this case, we are sending a query parameter named page with the value of the current page, which is 1, which we initialized. This parameter is used to indicate which page of result you want to retrieve from the API. So we want to get the first page. Obviously we're going to start from the first page, so that's why we have initialized our current page to first. And now that's all. I think when we come down here, we need to create buttons to actually handle that, to actually handle the pagination, because otherwise we won't be go back and forth into the pages. So what I'm going to do is, where is my movie ends? So it's movie cars ends here. After this I will create another class, name it buttons. Okay, and inside this we are gonna conditional get the buttons. We're gonna get the current page. If the current page is greater than 1, then we will display the back button, just like this. As you can see, you are not able to see the back button here unless you actually go into the first page. So we're going to conditionally render that. So if the current page is greater than 1, we're gonna create a button here with a class name button previous. So that will be obviously that will be the previous button. Don't really need to give it a class because we can style both the buttons are same. On click event, which will be a function that we have to create. Previous item, previous page, we can name it, and the button name would be back. So if you can see that, okay, we have to create the function first. So after our use effect function, now this is screaming because this definitely needs a dependency, so which is current page in this case. So now that we have provided that dependency, we can create this previous page function to actually go back to the previous page. So after the use effect, we can create an arrow function, const previous page, and inside this we're gonna conditionally check if the current page is greater than 1. Then we want to set the current page, which is our this state variable, to what we're gonna set it to previous -1. and we will copy this down for the next page. Next, and here in the next page we are going to check if the current pages are less than all the pages that the API has. Then we're going to set it to next, and you guessed it, +1. So this is the next button, this is the previous button. So now we're going to come down here, we'll create the p tag for page, and let's get the current page. So we are now on page 1 currently, and here we can create the second button, which we also gonna check if the current page is less than the total pages. So when you reach the final page, right, and then we just copy this button, next, just change this to next page, and also change this to next. So we're still not seeing the button. I believe we have an issue somewhere in our fetch function. So we are fetching that params, setting the current page, const result all. Okay, so here it is. This should we can't name it whatever we want. It has to be total pages because that's what exists on the APIs. Total pages. Total pages. And I think it's gonna ask me for the missing dependency, so this also become a part of this. Total pages is this one, not that total pages, so we don't have to pass it. I have similar name here, the one with the underscore that comes from the API, so that's what we need. And here we have, I've already added the CSS for button, I think. So here it is. This is the CSS for the buttons. And with that, now we have pagination in our app. There you can see that we can go to the next page. Now let's see if we are fetching not slice. We're not gonna get slice function here. So we're fetching everything that comes from the database, which is maximum is 20 items in this case. 7 plus 7, 14 plus 3 is 6. So that's it. That's all we have. Without pagination, we were only seeing the 20 items from the movie database, but now we have pagination here, so we can go to next page. Now we're on page 2. We can see more. We can keep on going as much as you want. So there it is. We have got some pages here, and you can come back to the other app. Since this is a preloaded state, so it stays there. You can keep on going. So you can see with this simple params object, we added pagination to our API. So I don't know why I'm updating that. So we have got that. We got the types. The types associate to the use state variable, which is fetching the items. Then we have current pages. The initial page is 1. If we set it to 10, we will be on page 10 by default. So there you go. We are on the page 10 by default. But we wanna start on page 1 all the time. First page. And here it is. So that's pretty much the code. And this is our app. Now let's go ahead and use the slice function. So we were using slice to display 7. As you can see, we can go next. You can keep on scrolling here until the amount of movies that this database have, which is like 35,000. So that's it, you can keep on going here. But if you didn't have pagination here, you were just limited to 20s. You couldn't display more than 20 movies. Now I have 20. Let's say I want to make it 200. That wouldn't work. Hence the pagination. So that's it. You have now implemented a basic pagination application with the API in React. So you can customize the pagination control and styling according to your app's design. Remember that this is a simple example, and there are more advanced pagination techniques that you can explore, such as lazy loading or maybe infinite scrolling and more. But we don't want infinite scrolling because it can be overwhelming. But yeah, there are more to explore. I will be creating more tutorials in the video. Please don't forget to subscribe the channel so I can upload more, and yourself will motivate me to create more and more videos. And I really appreciate you watching this video. Thank you so much, guys, and good luck with your React projects.